A fiercely creative spirit, a devoted mother, and a quiet force in British theater, that was Jill Freud. Her story is not just about a long life well lived, but about someone who dared to start a whole new artistic chapter when most people are thinking about slowing down. And this is the part most people miss. Her greatest cultural impact came in what many would call later life. My mother, Jill Freud, who has recently died at the age of 98, was an energetic actor, an innovative producer, and the driving founder of one of the UK's most beloved summer repertory theatre companies. She poured her talent into both performance and production, leaving an imprint on audiences, colleagues, and an entire region's cultural life. For many people in coastal Suffolk, her name became synonymous with summer theatre. After graduating from RADA, the prestigious drama school in London, in 1947, she stepped into the professional world under the stage name Jill Raymond. Early on, she landed a leading role in the film The Woman in the Hall, acting alongside the rising star Jean Simmons. She did not confine herself to film. She also embraced radio and television work, including appearances on Torchy the Battery Boy for the BBC Light Service, an early children's program that many still remember fondly. On stage, one of the highlights of her career was performing in The Dame of Sark with Celia Johnson at London's Wyndham's Theatre in 1974, a production she recalled with enormous affection. Away from the spotlight, Jill balanced a demanding personal life with quiet determination. She was married to the liberal politician Clement Freud, serving as a highly active MP's wife at a time when that role involved intense public and social commitments. Together, they raised 5 children, and yet her fullest creative flowering did not come until later. In 1980, when many contemporaries were considering retirement, she was in her 60s and instead launched Jill Freud and Company, a summer repertory company that would go on to define theater seasons in Southwold and Aldborough for around 30 years. But here's where it gets controversial. Some might say she achieved her true professional prime after the age at which society often writes women off. Through Jill Freud and Company, she brought consistently high-quality theater to the coastal communities of Suffolk, helping transform summer holidays there into cultural events as much as seaside escapes. Over the years, the company produced hundreds of plays, toured internationally, and evolved into a cherished local institution that regular audiences planned their summers around. Actors returned season after season, not just for the work, but because they valued Jill's fairness, sharp wit, and firm commitment to the rights and well-being of everyone in the company. She believed passionately that regional theater mattered just as much as work in London's West End, and that belief helped sustain a vibrant artistic scene that still continues each summer on the stages she helped bring to life. Jill's story began far from the Suffolk playhouses that later defined her public reputation. She was born June Fluid in Barnes, in southwest London, to Winifred, née Johnson, and Henry Fluid. Her father taught classics at St. Paul's School, and education, books, and ideas were part of the fabric of her childhood. She attended the Sacred Heart Convent School in Hammersmith, where a sense of discipline combined with a growing love of performance and literature. The outbreak of the Second World War changed everything. Like many children in London, she was evacuated for safety, sent to Oxford, and placed with a series of different households. This constant shifting might have unsettled a less resilient teenager, but it became the prelude to an extraordinary twist in her life story. At the age of 15, she was moved to a house owned by an academic known simply as Jack. At first, she had no idea that Jack was the pen name's owner, her favorite writer, C.S. Lewis. Over time, Jill became a cherished member of that household, living there for 3 years and forming close bonds with Lewis and those around him. Only later did she discover that he had acknowledged her as one of the inspirations for Lucy Pevensey in the Narnia books, the brave, clear-eyed girl at the heart of the Chronicles of Narnia. For anyone who knew Jill, that connection felt completely fitting. She carried Lucy's sense of curiosity, moral courage, and straightforward kindness into adulthood, and those qualities colored everything from how she ran a theater company to how she spoke with strangers at the box office. When the war ended, Jill pursued her ambition for the stage more formally and successfully gained a place at RADA. Remarkably, her studies were funded by C.S. Lewis, whose generosity allowed her to train professionally rather than treat acting as an unreachable dream. During her time at RADA, she studied alongside other young performers who would later become household names, including the future James Bond actor Roger Moore. That period gave her rigorous technical grounding and also immersed her in the camaraderie and competition of serious theatrical training. In 1950, she married Clement Freud, who at different times made his mark as a writer, broadcaster, chef, and, from 1973 onwards, a member of Parliament. Their home life was anything but ordinary. The couple created an energetic, often unconventional household in which political debate, culinary experiments, and artistic conversations coexisted with noisy family routines. The boundaries between domestic life, public roles, and creative work were porous. It was entirely normal for a meal to turn into a political discussion, or for children to fall asleep to the hum of adults talking about scripts, campaigns, or recipes. Jill's personality made her unforgettable to those who met her. She was renowned for a warmth that put people at ease, an agile intellect that allowed her to hold her own in any conversation, and a mischievous, sometimes wicked sense of humor that surfaced at unexpected moments. Widowed in 2009 after Clement's death, she refused to retreat into quiet withdrawal. Instead, she stayed mentally sharp, socially engaged, and delightfully eccentric. She liked to joke that the secret to her longevity lay in having exactly the same lunch every day, a glass of red wine, a packet of crisps, and a copy of The Guardian. It sounds like a punchline, but it also captures her blend of modest pleasure, routine, and curiosity about the world. Her work as a performer continued well into old age, defying assumptions about when an actor's career should wind down. At 95, an age when many people are long retired, she recorded her final radio play, demonstrating that her voice and timing were still in demand. Her last appearance on film was a brief but memorable cameo as the housekeeper at Downing Street in the 2003 film Love Actually, a role that quietly delighted friends and family spotting her on screen. But here's where it gets interesting. Should the industry rethink how it values older performers, given how vibrantly she worked into her 90s? Her contribution to theater did not go unnoticed by the wider arts community. In 2001, the University of East Anglia awarded her an honorary doctorate in recognition of her services to theater, particularly her role in nurturing regional performance and creating space for actors and audiences outside London. That honor reflected not just a single achievement, but decades of work building a cultural ecosystem that encouraged new plays, fostered talent, and gave local people access to live drama year after year. Jill's family remained central to her sense of identity, however public her achievements became. She is survived by her 5 children, Nicola, Ashley, Dominic, Matthew, and the child writing this tribute, as well as 18 grandchildren and 8 great-grandchildren. They span generations and geographies, carrying forward stories of seaside summers, rehearsal rooms, and Sunday lunches filled with laughter and debate. In that sense, her legacy stretches far beyond her own lifetime, living on both in the theaters she helped shape and in the lives she touched at home. Perhaps the most striking thing about Jill's life is how it challenges conventional narratives about age, creativity, and success. Is it really true that artistic careers must peak early, or that later life reinvention is the exception rather than the rule? Her example suggests the opposite, that a person can discover new forms of influence and fulfillment well past midlife, and that communities benefit when they continue to make space for elders to lead, create, and innovate. And this is the part most people miss. Her story also raises tricky questions about the balance between public legacy and private complexity, about the roles of partners of politicians, about regional versus metropolitan culture, and about how much credit women of her generation were actually given for their achievements. Do you think society properly recognizes the cultural work done outside big cities and the contributions of those who start their main career later in life? Should stories like Jill's change how we think about age, ambition, and whose names get remembered in theater history? Share whether you agree, disagree, or see her life through a completely different lens. The debate around legacies like hers is far from over.